So in this video we're going to be picking up where we left off in the last one. In the last one we prepared two polished pages of evidence. One was all the paychecks to terminated employees, and then the other one was a summary of the paychecks paid to terminated employees. So it gives us the net cash that went out. Actually, the cash that went out was the 173. It's just that only 140 went to the fraudster. The rest went to the U.S. government to pay taxes on these two people. So no telling how that all went. And we had just imported in the non-Friday paychecks, so we have additional paycheck troubles here. And we didn't clean this up, so we would want, what I want you to do is to remove the columns that you don't think would be helpful as evidence for the reader of this report. And then fix the titles the way we did on the other tabs to be more natural title headings, and get it to format on a page in a way that looks polished. So I'll let you do that because I illustrated how to do that with the other two. What I want to do now is to pull in the data from the accounts payable research that we did and show you how to do the pivot table so that you can isolate the vendors that appeared to have suspicious activity that we would want to have the client research. Let's go to our folder where we downloaded the files out of IDEA, or exported the files out of IDEA, and we've got the AP Unusual Ideas for Follow-Up. I'm going to then come to the bottom here and right click on the tab and go to Move or Copy, and I'm going to create a copy, and I'm going to come up here to the pull down menu and tell it to please put the copy in my evidence file. And I can tell it where to put it, whether to put it at the end or before these various sheets, and you can sort of decide where you want to put it. I'm content to put it at the end. So now in my evidence report I have this non-Friday paychecks, which is not cleaned up yet. I have the 2 pages for the paychecks to terminated employees, and now I have this new tab which is all the AP data. Now I don't want all the AP data, I just want the data for those vendors that we thought may need a further investigation. So I'm going to create a pivot table, since the pivot table that we created in IDEA did not download. And that probably is that I gave you the wrong command to download it. But it's a good idea for us to learn the pivot table in Excel, so that gives us an opportunity to work on a different skill set. Okay, so go up to the top menu and click on Insert. And over to the left you see Pivot Table. And I'm content for it to be on a new worksheet, and it appears to be capturing all the data. You can see the dancing dots around the edge, so it defaulted to all the data, so that looks good to me, all 943 rows, all 942 checks. And so then you get this type of presentation. So I'm going to go over here to the right, and I'm going to build what I want, very similar to the way I built what I wanted in IDEA. So I'm going to take, I want my payee to be my row, and I want that memo line also to be in there. And then I want the dollar amount, okay, and I want the amount by year and date. So, or year and month. Alright, so let's see, let's arrange here which one is first and which one is second. Well, none of those. Maybe that needs to be in column headings. Let's, there we go. Okay, so the year and the month need to be in the column labels with the year on top, and then the amounts come down here into the add up the amounts, the values. Okay, so these give me the payments by month for the first 6 months of 2013, and it gives it to me by vendor, and then it shows me the memo that was associated with the various payments. So there were 2 different memos for the payments in February, and just one memo for the payment in March, and so forth. Okay, now I only want to select, very similar to what we did in IDEA. I'm going to go up here to this pull down, and I'm going to unselect them all and then come back and select the ones that we were concerned about, and we did the same process in IDEA. So let's go on down. AT&T was one of them. Let's see if I kept notes. Cox, and you would have kept notes too. Enroth is the one that had those massive duplicate payments, so we definitely want to see those again. And then the Janney and the Janney 2. We're not sure. Joy's maybe, we don't know how many different cleaning vendors they really need, so we will ask about that. Another cleaning service, and then another cleaning service, so they can investigate the payments to Spies. Did we miss cash? Yeah, we would definitely want to have that for sure. Okay, so Spies, the Sam's Wholesale was the one that had the extreme large payment. Sprint was okay. I want to know if that's Spies services. We will see. Walmart had a big amount, right? Alright, I think I have them all. And then hit OK. And so now it's going to look very similar to what we were trying to export, and probably could have exported in IDEA if we'd been clever. I think I would have had to go over to the right hand side and export the pivot table on the right instead of exporting the database, which is apparently what I did. Okay, and you're certainly welcome to play with that if you like. So I clicked outside the pivot table, and those instructions disappeared, but you can click back into the pivot table and they will reappear in case you want to modify anything on here. Let's see how this works out on the page. So we're bleeding off the page by a couple of columns here, and we may be able to work on that. Let's make these dollar amounts. Giving us even more troubles. So let's make you a little bit smaller. Okay, well, of course I can always go to the landscape mode, and that may be the right, there we go. Okay, so landscape gets it all on one page. We're going to have multiple pages just like we had the other report, so we'll want to come back and do column headings so that oh look, and I made the column headings, the labels, into dollar amounts when I reformatted, so that was not good. I have to go back and fix that. That's a little better. So I will put labels on this so that each page, as it scrolls, will have appropriate headings on the pages. And I showed you how to do that, so you should be able to do that for yourself here. Let's rename this at the bottom. All I did was right click on sheet 2. Here's the database. We have to keep this because it's feeding the pivot table. So we will have to give it some natural column headings and get rid of any columns that you think aren't interesting. Make them big enough so that the contents can be reviewed and so forth. So for instance, the person that posted, that's not interesting to us, right? We don't need the pay date, month, or year here, but it may be something that's being used over in the pivot table, so if you remove it, the pivot table all of a sudden is going to collapse. So be mindful of that. Now what we want is a summary sheet where we can summarize the evidence that we've presented, and this would then be an exhibit that goes behind the report. And I'd like to make that the first tab, so I'm going to move it to the beginning. So I'm going to make a list of all the things, and I'm going to give it the dollar amount and tell it where it could find it. So Alright, so clean this up, make this a little bit more. Okay, so watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to do plus, and I'm going to point at dollar amount related to the paychecks to paid to terminated employees, and then the tabs So then this is like an index or a table of contents or something like that, could be put with the report. Then we have paychecks on non-Friday dates plus, and let's see, did we add these up? We haven't cleaned this one up yet. So when you get the dollar amount at the bottom, you'll point to that dollar amount and put it over here in this cell, and then you'll indicate that that information can be found on that tab. And then you have I might be tempted to list out the vendors, so I would start with AT&T, and then I would point at the amount. And I'm going to be pointing at the residential amount, at the mirror amount, because the commercial amount I'm not concerned about, but I am concerned about the mirror amount, or the residential piece that may be tucked in here. And I might highlight that amount so it's pretty clear where you can find it, or you could highlight all the individual amounts and the total, something like that. But those are the ones in particular that you're indicating to the client that you're uncomfortable with. And then of course the next one would be cash, and you would point at plus and then go to the tab and then put your cursor on the dollar amount. So in this particular case, it would be all three of these, wouldn't it? Oh, there's the total at the top. Okay. So, and I can go back here. I can highlight the individual checks. You can decide exactly how you want to do that. Try not to get too colorful here, because if they decide to print this off, dark coloring will gray the cell out and make it hard to see the contents. Alright, so if you want to use color, this might be a little bit on the bright side, but let's say you want to use color, stick with something very mild. So if you're going to use, orange or something like that, you could certainly do something like that. Anything darker than that is going to be a problem. And don't use lots of different colors, because that is confusing. Pick one color you like and then stick with that. So we're highlighting the checks that we think need follow-up. And so then list the rest of the vendors, and then you can make a total there, grand total at the bottom of the evidence that needs to be investigated that's questionable. Just like your other tabs, this needs to be presented so it looks professional on the page once you get done. So you go up here to your print preview and make sure, so here it's bleeding off the page. We have this little straggly amount that's not fitting. So you can make them a little smaller. You can go to landscape. You can change the size of the text. Be sure you don't make it too jammed on the page in tiny text that can't be read. Make sure that there's a title. Right now there's not a title on this. All pages need a title, just like I've showed you in the prior screens. Okay, So I think you have what you need to be able to pull this project together, and I look forward to seeing your work.